Hey everyone, and welcome back. Today we're taking a deep dive into the world of 16-year-olds with this book, Navigating Adolescence,
Yeah,
a guide for teens and parents.
that's a good one.
It is. It's like we're getting a backstage pass to that time when the world felt like it was opening up.
Everything felt so intense.
So intense,
Yeah.
exactly. And that's exactly what this deep dive is all about, understanding what's really going on with 16-year-olds.
Right.
From this science behind how their brains are developing to those infamous mood swings and the pressure cooker of social lives.
For sure.
Yeah.
And we'll get into tips for how to navigate those choppy waters.
Yes, we will. And those tips are for teens themselves and also their parents, because everybody needs a little help with this one.
Absolute.
Okay, let's start with the science. What's happening in the brain of a 16-year-old that makes this age so unique?
Well, the book calls it brain remodeling,
Okay.
and it's not just a fancy term. Think of it like this. A 16-year-old's brain is like a massive construction site.
Whoa.
It's getting rid of old connections it doesn't need anymore. Okay.
And strengthening the ones that are important.
So it's like decluttering, but for your brain.
Exactly. I like that. And this remodeling is happening across different parts of the brain. But here's the thing.
What's that?
The prefrontal cortex, the CEO of the brain,
Right.
the one responsible for decision-making and impulse control, that's one of the last areas to fully develop.
So that explains a lot.
Right.
Like maybe why a brilliant plan at 16 might have been raiding the pantry at midnight. Not exactly executive level decision making.
Not quite. The book actually highlights how this underdeveloped prefrontal cortex,
Okay.
coupled with a surge in hormones like dopamine, is why teenagers are wired for seeking thrills and rewards.
They're just going for it.
They are. They're driven by the excitement of the moment,
Yeah.
not necessarily thinking about the long-term consequences.
It's not that they're intentionally making bad decisions.
Right.
It's more that their brains are literally still under construction. Exactly. And this has huge implications for how we understand teenage behavior.
Yeah.
It's not about labeling them as reckless or irresponsible.
Right.
It's about recognizing that their brains are still learning to navigate the world.
Which leads us perfectly into talking about those legendary teenage mood swings.
Oh, yes. I mean,
The ups and downs.
the ups and downs. We've all been there.
Absolutely.
1 minute you're laughing, the next you're slamming doors.
It's not just a stereotype, though.
Really?
It's science. The
Yes.
book talks about how hormones are shifting in both boys and girls at this age.
So there is something to it.
Yeah. For example, boys are experiencing a surge in testosterone, which can lead to increased aggression and impulsivity.
Right?
While in girls, the fluctuation of estrogen can make them more sensitive to emotional cues.
Interesting. So it's almost like
Yeah.
everyone's got a different cocktail of hormones
Right.
coursing through their veins, making them extra sensitive to, well, everything. To everything. Exactly. And then on top of those hormonal shifts, teenagers are also going through major physical changes.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Like boys' voices deepening and girls developing curves.
I remember that.
It's a time of rapid transformation.
It is.
And it can be both exciting and really overwhelming for a 16-year-old.
Oh, for sure. And I remember feeling like my body was changing overnight.
Oh, yeah.
And then add on top of all that, the pressure of trying to figure out who you are
Oh, absolutely.
in the midst of all this chaos.
Yeah.
Which brings us to identity formation.
It does.
So the book talks about how 16-year-olds are constantly experimenting with different roles and personas,
Yes, they are.
trying on different hats to see which one fits.
Exactly.
It's like a giant social dress-up party where everyone's trying to find their signature look.
You could say that.
Yeah.
And this whole process is even more complicated because of the immense pressure to fit in with their peers.
Right.
Teenagers are constantly bombarded with messages about who they should be.
Oh, so much.
It is what they should look like, how they should behave.
Okay, so we've got the brain remodeling the hormonal roller coaster and the pressure to fit in.
It's a lot.
It sounds like being 16 is basically a recipe for drama.
It can definitely feel that way.
Yeah.
But you have to remember that this is also a time of incredible growth and potential.
That's true.
And it's about harnessing that potential
Yeah.
and guiding these young people towards becoming the best versions of themselves.
And that's where the book's practical advice comes in.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah. It offers guidance on everything from communicating with teenagers to setting boundaries around technology use and helping them navigate those tricky social situations.
It sounds like we've got a lot more to uncover about this fascinating age.
We do.
So stay tuned for part 2, where we'll explore how to actually put this knowledge into practice. And don't forget, we'll be sharing some specific tips from navigating adolescence that you can use in your own life.
Absolutely. Because we could all use a little help understanding the 16-year-old in our lives.
For sure.
Whether it's your own teenager, a younger sibling, or even just remembering what it was like to be that age ourselves.
Absolutely.
Welcome back to our deep dive into the world of 16-year-olds.
Last time we were talking about brain remodeling, those wild hormonal swings.
Yeah.
And the pressure to fit in.
A lot to hams.
It is. Now let's get into the practical stuff.
Okay.
How can we actually help teenagers navigate this intense phase? Navigating adolescence has a ton of advice.
It does.
Where do we even begin?
Well, the book really emphasizes this holistic approach to well-being.
Okay.
Like, it's not just about physical health,
Ah.
it's mental and emotional health, too.
So it's like a mind, body, spirit kind of thing.
Exactly. They're all interconnected.
Yeah.
For example, the book talks a lot about the impact of sleep deprivation on teenagers.
Okay.
We all know teenagers need their sleep,
They do.
but the book explains why those 8-10 hours are so crucial.
I'm guessing it's not just about avoiding those grumpy mornings.
No, it's not just that. Sleep deprivation in teenagers can actually worsen those mood swings.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it can also affect their concentration, memory, even their immune system.
Wow. It really is crucial then.
It is. It's like their brains are running on fumes when they don't get enough sleep.
That makes sense.
And the book makes some pretty compelling arguments for why parents should be fighting for those bedtimes, making sleep a priority.
Yeah, I remember those battles with my parents. But you know what? Maybe knowing the science behind it would have made me a little more cooperative back then.
Right.
Besides sleep, what are some other key areas the book focuses on?
Nutrition is a big one.
Okay.
And it's not about forcing teenagers to eat kale salads every day,
Right.
but making sure they get the nutrients that their bodies and brains are really craving at this age.
Okay, but let's be real for a second. Convincing a teenager to choose carrots over chips can feel like an Olympic sport.
It can.
You know?
And the book gets that.
Okay.
It actually suggests involving teenagers in meal planning and grocery shopping. Oh, that's interesting.
Give them some ownership, and that might make them more open to healthier choices.
I like that. It makes them feel like they're part of the decision,
Right.
not just following orders.
Exactly.
What about exercise? I'm guessing endless TikTok scrolling doesn't count as physical activity?
It does not.
Yeah.
The book really emphasizes regular physical activity, at least 60 minutes most days of the week.
Okay.
And it doesn't have to be boot camp style workouts.
Right.
It could be dancing, playing a sport, even just walking with friends.
Right.
It's all about finding those activities that teenagers actually enjoy, so it feels less like a chore and more like a fun way to de-stress.
So it's not about forcing them into a gym. It's about finding ways to make movement part of their lives.
Exactly.
I like that approach.
Yeah.
But even with all the healthy habits in the world, let's face it, teenagers still face a lot of emotional challenges.
They do.
Does the book address mental health directly?
Oh, absolutely. There's a whole section dedicated to mental health and well-being.
And it really emphasizes open communication.
Yeah.
Creating that safe space where teenagers feel comfortable talking about their feelings,
Right.
even the tough ones, is crucial.
I think that's easier said than done sometimes.
It is.
Teenagers are notoriously private, and it can be hard to break through those walls.
Oh, yeah. And the book acknowledges that.
How
And
about
it
it?
suggests starting small.
Okay.
Maybe by sharing your own experiences, showing them that it's okay to not be okay. It's about building trust step by step so that they know they can come to you when they're struggling.
It's not about forcing a heart-to-heart. It's about creating an environment where those conversations can just happen organically.
Exactly. I
Yeah.
like that. And it's not just about talking either.
Oh,
The book also introduces different coping strategies for teenagers.
Okay.
Things like mindfulness, meditation, or even creative outlets like writing or music.
Oh, they're good.
Yeah, it's about giving them a toolbox of resources to manage those big emotions.
Right.
And of course, the book stresses the importance of seeking professional help when needed.
Right, because sometimes even the best support system isn't enough.
It's not.
Okay, so we've covered sleep, nutrition, exercise, and mental health.
A lot.
Is there anything else the book dives into?
There is a lot more. The book tackles social dynamics, academic pressure, even future planning. It's a very comprehensive guide to the teenage experience.
Wow.
But I think one of the most fascinating chapters is about navigating the digital world.
Okay, now that is a topic I'm very curious about. Social media wasn't a thing when I was 16, but it's like the air teenagers breathe these days.
Right.
Yeah,
It's inescapable.
it is.
And the book doesn't shy away from its impact, both positive and negative.
So it's not demonizing social media entirely.
No, it actually acknowledges that social media can be a powerful tool for connection,
Right.
especially for teenagers who might feel isolated or different.
Right.
But it also delves into the potential risks
Okay.
like cyberbullying, body image issues, and the pressure to portray a perfect life online.
Oh, I can imagine that's a recipe for anxiety.
It is,
Right.
yeah. And the book doesn't just leave parents hanging.
Oh, good.
It provides practical strategies for navigating this digital landscape with their teenagers.
Okay, I'm hooked. What kind of strategies are we talking about? Spill the tea.
Okay, well, we'll have to save that digital deep dive for part 3 of our episode.
That's fair. We'll dive into that next time. For now, let's give our listeners a moment to process all this amazing advice from Navigating Adolescence.
Oh,
Okay, so you left us hanging last time.
I did.
We need to talk about teenagers and this whole digital world they live in.
It's a big one.
It is a big one. So the book actually has some advice for parents on how to handle this whole social media thing with their teenagers.
Uh-huh.
What kind of advice does it give?
Well, it all starts with acknowledging that just banning social media isn't realistic these days. It's more about teaching responsible use.
Okay.
And that starts with open and honest conversations.
So not just get off your phone,
Mm,
but actually talking to them about what they're seeing online, what makes them feel good or bad.
exactly. It's about helping teenagers develop this critical eye.
Okay.
So they're not just passively consuming everything.
Right.
The book even suggests having family discussions about like the pressure to present a perfect image online or cyberbullying
Yeah.
and even just recognizing misinformation.
Because it's not just about what they're posting, it's also about what they're absorbing.
It is.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so beyond those conversations, does the book have any other advice?
Yeah, well, it advocates for setting some boundaries.
Like what kind of boundaries?
Things like screen time limits,
Yeah.
maybe tech-free zones in the house, or even a family charging station where everybody parks their devices at night.
That's a good idea.
Yeah.
So it just creates a little healthy distance.
Exactly. And it's not just about the rules. It's about being role models, too.
Right, because if parents are constantly on their phones, the teenagers are going to pick up on that.
They will.
Lead by example, right? Do as I do. Just do as I say.
That's it. But I will say the book also emphasizes the positive potential of technology, too.
Oh, yeah.
It encourages parents to help teenagers find creative outlets online or connect with people who share their passions,
Right.
maybe even use social media for activism or making a difference in the world.
That's awesome. So it's not all doom and gloom.
No,
Social media can be a force for good, too.
it can. And it's about helping teenagers to kind of see beyond the likes and the followers,
Yeah.
to actually use their digital voices in a way that feels authentic and meaningful to them.
Wow, this whole deep dive into navigating adolescence has been so insightful.
It has.
Any final thoughts before we wrap things up?
Well, I would say the teenage years are a wild ride.
They are.
But this book really does remind us that it's a journey worth taking
That's true.
for both teenagers and the adults in their lives, you know. And with a little understanding, guidance, and a whole lot of patience, we can help teenagers not just survive, but thrive during this time.
Well said. I have to admit I was a little intimidated by this topic at first,
Mm-hmm.
but this book really broke it down in a way that feels approachable and even hopeful.
I agree, and that's the key takeaway here.
It is.
It's about understanding the challenges,
Right.
but focusing on the potential.
Mm-hmm.
You know, 16-year-olds are on the verge of so much, and it's really our job to equip them with the tools they need to navigate this exciting but often overwhelming world.
I couldn't agree more. And to all our listeners out there, if you want to dive even deeper into this topic, we highly recommend checking out Navigating Adolescence, a guide for teens and parents.
It's a good one.
It is. The link is in the description of this video. It's such an invaluable resource for anyone who wants to understand and support the teenagers in their lives.
It really is.
Thank you so much for joining us for this deep dive into the world of 16-year-olds. Until next time, keep learning, keep growing, and keep those conversations going.